I want to talk about prison cells and weight machines and light bulbs and try to bring them together. So 20 years ago, I taught at a prison, and my students would leave their 8 by 10 cells to come and do a creative writing class, and they would go back to their 8 by 10 cells where they would spend most of their lives. And then I would get done teaching and I would drive home and walk through a beautiful forest and then sit in a chair in front of a computer, a desktop computer, and spend the next many, many hours not leaving that 8 by 10 area, but sometimes looking outside and looking back to the computer and working on a book, or if I get stuck on the book, playing a computer game or something. And it struck me that, yes, there's a difference that we can leave, but for the most part, most of us don't leave those 8 by 10 areas, whether they're a cubicle, an office at work. We spend the majority of our time, or a couch in front of the TV. We spend the majority of our time in one little place, or three little cells. And now I want to talk about weight machines. Uh, when I was in college, even when I was an athlete, I never liked working out as such. And I did a lot of it. I lifted a lot of weights. I would do lots of plyometrics. I would run up and down stadium stairs for hours at a time. I would run, lap after lap on the track. And I never liked it. And it wasn't that I didn't like the exercise. It was that I didn't like the fact that when I would lift up a weight, I would just drop it back down. And when I would when I would jump up the stadium stairs, I would just walk back down. I wasn't actually accomplishing anything. I always would much prefer hauling hay to lifting weights, because when you haul hay, when you're done, the hay has been moved from the field and stacked in the barn. You've actually accomplished something. And I was aware, even at 20 years old, that as I push the weights up, the next thing I do is let them back down. There's actually nothing has been accomplished in the real world. And I'm not saying people shouldn't be fit. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that we have separated, long since separated work from our real lives. And in the way we evolved as human beings, first of all, we wouldn't have been in 8 by 10 cells. And second, we wouldn't have really needed to do artificial exercise, because we would have been walking every day. We would have been running every day. We would have been, if you're in this area, you would have been carrying 50-pound fish every day or quite often. And your exercise would have been the stuff of life. But we sort of separated that. And I wonder what that all does to us, both psychologically and physically. And the same with, what does it do to be so sedentary? We didn't evolve to be sedentary. And I'm not attacking anybody out there for sitting too much on the couch. I'm right now sitting here staring at a computer to make this. What I'm saying is that a this is a way of life that we have assumed that is sedentary. And it's no wonder that we have so much physical unfitness, because it's not integrated into our daily lives. We have to artificially create it. And most of us, myself included, aren't going to bother. And the next part I want to talk about is light bulbs. I had a friend back 30 years ago, 34 years ago now, who insisted that the light bulb was the single most destructive human invention for human health and well-being. And the reason he argued that is because he thought that it had destroyed our sleep patterns and allowed us uh, to to stay up until late in the night. And I say this again as somebody who routinely stays up until 2 or 3 in the morning. But anyway, the light bulbs had, for one thing, they had made it possible, more feasible, to have 24-hour, to have factories working 24 hours a day. And another is that they had made it so our homes could, the point is they had disrupted our connection to the diurnal cycle was no longer integral. It was no longer organic. Instead, whatever relation we have to light and dark is mediated by our creations. And I've told this story before, but it's worth repeating. When when I lived in Spokane back in the 90s, there was an ice storm that knocked out electricity for 2 or 3 weeks in the middle of winter. And um, I had plenty of firewood, so my home was warm, but there was no electricity. And it was the only time in my life that I can remember when I felt fully rested because I was usually going to bed. You know, it was Spokane's north, so it was getting dark at 5, 4:30, 4, and then I would be in bed by 5:30 and asleep by 6:30. I'd wake up at 2, look at my clock that had glow in the dark hands and see that I got another 6 hours before I have to get up, and I would go back to sleep. And after 4 or 5 days of that, I was, for the only time in my adult life, completely rested. And you can say, Derek, that's not a big deal. You can do it now. The addiction's too strong, man. And it's the same. I'm trying to tell the same story 3 different ways. That what has happened is we have our connection to natural cycles, our connection to exercise, and our connection to movement have all been made made from inherent and integral to our lives to something that we have to work to do. They become not primary to our lives. And I mean, honestly, who's got the time to exercise? Who's got the time to do all this? Who's got the time? You know, our time is being taken up by working, by sitting in that little 8 by 10 space so that we can type away and we can create spreadsheets that then help sell widgets or whatever it is that we do, or we can write books that help publishing companies to sell books, whatever it is we do. But we're not walking and we're not moving, and we weren't meant for this.